In today's session, we welcome Ms. Anupama Chopra, a name that over the past few years has been revered by cinephiles all over the nation. Born in Calcutta, India to a Punjabi Khatri family and brought up in Mumbai, Mrs. Chopra hails from a family that includes some of the most significant figures of the film industry. Her mother, Kamna Chandra, was a scriptwriter who wrote dialogues for iconic films such as Prem Yog and Chandni, while her sister, Tanuja Chandra, is a Bollywood director and screenwriter who's most well known for a screenplay for the 1997 Yash Chopra blockbuster film Dil To Pagal Hai. On the other hand, her husband, Mr. Vinod Chopra, is one of the most critically acclaimed directors in Bollywood cinema. His most popular films include Three Idiots and Munabai MBBS. In 1987, Ms. Chopra graduated from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai with a BA in English Literature. She earned her MA in journalism from Northwestern University's Medal School of Journalism, where she won the Harrington Award for magazine journalism. Besides being one of the nation's most popular film critics, she's also a best-selling author of several film critique books. Her first book, Sholay, The Making of a Classic, won the 2001 National Film Award for Best Book in Cinema. Her other book, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, was published by the British Film Institute as part of their modern classic series. Her book, King of Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan and the Seductive World of Indian Cinema, was featured on the annual Editor's Choice list of the New York Times Book Review. Ms. Chopra has also hosted several film review shows such as Picture This on NDTV 24/7 news channel, and in 2012 she started a weekly review show called Front Row with Anupama Chopra on Star World, which ran till June 2014. Thank you, Mrs. Chopra, for taking time out of your busy schedule and being with us here today. We really look forward towards this insightful and exciting experience.
Hi, good morning. When he called, I thought this was going to be a small classroom thing. I'm really nervous, Thank you for having me. This is like way too much, and thank you for that lovely introduction and all those clips. First thing, my kids are mortified that I'm going to embarrass them. They wanted to even wet my clothes to make sure that I was wearing the right thing. So when you get out of here, just tell them your mom's really cool. I need that, okay? They're both taller than me now, so I have very little authority. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a film critic, why I started, how I got into the profession. It really wasn't a sort of thought out plan. I wasn't film buff when I was like 5 years old. I don't even remember really seeing a lot of movies then. It was a very different time. I grew up in the 80s, and it's very hard for people to imagine now, but at that time, Bollywood, Hindi cinema was considered really infra-dig. I mean, it was, I was a South Bombay kid, and, we lived on Nepal Road. We saw movies at Sterling and Eros. We only saw English films. Hindi movies were like for the unwashed masses. We couldn't, my mother wrote Hindi films, but we would not really be interested in watching them. And I graduated from St. Xavier's, English Lit major, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. At that time, the two options were advertising and teaching, and I didn't really want to do either. And one of my professors suggested there was a magazine called Movie, and they said that why don't you just go in and do this for a while, just write for Movie magazine till you figure out what it is that you want to do. So I started at Movie. So it's interesting that my journey was that I fell in love with the film industry first and then fell in love with the movies. And at that time, it was crazy because we would just go from one studio to the next. There were no barriers between us and the stars and the sets. There were no minders, there were no bodyguards, there were no publicists. We literally just went from set to set, wrote stories, did interviews. It was a much more innocent time. It wasn't great journalism. I can't say that I did anything that was really valuable. But what it did was, within 8 months, it completely made me aware that I had found my calling, that this was what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to do it in the way it was done. And of course, my parents were just mortified. I am Not to brag, but I am a first class first from Bombay University. So what that means is I taught in English literature. You know, Hindi movies mein wo ghar aata hai na, the boy comes over and says, "Ma, main first class first aaya hu." So I am that, okay? And so my parents were just like, "Are you kidding us? You know, you have done that, and now you want to write about, you know, Sanjay Dutt and Anil Kapoor and Sunny Deol," and they were just so embarrassed. My mother wouldn't tell anyone what I did. So also, the quality of journalism was really shabby. You know, it's again very hard to imagine, but at the time, you know, mainstream journalism didn't cover Hindi cinema at all. You know, now it's like every paper has you know, a supplement that only records what actors eat for lunch and how they work out. But at that time, nobody cared. You know, and so it was. The whole thing was, and the industry itself was like the Wild West. You know, it was chaotic, it was disorganized. I've been on sets where literally they were writing scenes where, you know, as they were shooting them. So it was just not a place where educated, you know, upper middle class kids went. It was that whole cliche of the producer in the white safari suit with a suitcase full of cash was really true. I have seen suitcases of cash. So, you know, it's, but I wanted, it was mad, it was colorful, it was just completely seductive. And it is where I wanted to be, but I wanted to talk about the movies. I wanted to talk about trends in cinema. I wanted to talk about actors in a slightly more serious way than what was being done. And so I decided that I needed to train in journalism, and I went to Northwestern University, and after that I worked in New York, because I also thought that I don't want to go home and then think about what it's like to be in a magazine in New York, and you know, I had all these visions of sort of, you know, glamour and cosmopolitan, and I went to work for Harper's Bazaar magazine. It was hell. It was complete because it was a very bad time in America, and in terms of recession, and you know, I was of course the lowest on the totem pole. I was doing fact checking and getting coffee for my editor, which is what we all have to do. So there's no shame in that. But it just didn't hold me, and I came back in '94. Again, at a time when not many people who had an option to live in America came back. So, I mean, by this time, I think my parents had just given up. They're like, really? Now we've given you an American education and you want to come back? And I went to work for India Today. I came back and I got a job with India Today. It was very funny because Mr. Arun Puri and Shekhar Gupta did my interview, and I laugh a lot. So even through the interview, apparently, I was just giggling. Shekhar told me that recently. And Mr. Puri was like, Shekhar, she just laughs, you know, how are we going to have her work for us? And this was the sort of value they put on Bollywood. Shekhar said, I said, but she's just going to write about Hindi movies, she's not covering the parliament, let her laugh. So that's how I really got my first job. But the amazing thing was that they gave me a platform. They, again, nobody cared like what I was doing, because, you know, Hindi cinema was just so down the priority list. It was all politics and business and sports, and then somewhere you might run a glamorous picture of some actor. But when I started to write about business trends and about actors looking at more their craft than their, than who they were having affairs with, they gave me a platform. India Today gave me, for about 10 to 12 years I worked there, and you know, they allowed me to write whatever I wanted to. And you know, I think to some degree and to some extent it changed the way people talked about cinema. People talked about Hindi films, not cinema, just Hindi films. And somewhere through that, I think 3 years or 4 years into it, I started to review films for India Today as well. And you know, since then, it's been very interesting because I've seen how journalism has changed. It's gone from being, you know, very much the kind of tabloidish journalism that was practiced when I first started, to a much more interesting, well-written, well-researched journalism. And my fear is that now we're sort of back into that tabloid space. I have a lot of angst about the discourse around Hindi cinema right now. I think the fact that we live in a world where we can buy press is extremely problematic. I'm an old school journalist. At Northwestern University, the first thing they taught us was there's a church and state separation between advertising and editorial. Those two do not mix. And I'm now functioning in a landscape where ads and editorials are the same thing. We do not know what is advertising and what is editorial because it's all paid for. Bombay Times is paid for, parts of HT are paid for, Midday, DNA, every single thing. For me, I find that very difficult. I don't know really how to function in that space because if it's all paid for, what is real, But that is the way it is. And the great thing is, at least in my experience, over 20 years of doing this, no editor so far has ever tried to, influence a review, shape my rating. I've worked with NDTV, I've worked with Star World, I am now the film critic for Hindustan Times, I'm also on NDTV 24/7, and at least in those spaces, nobody has ever tried to influence what my review is, which is, that kind of independence today is pretty rare, so I'm very grateful for it. What is it, I was also asked for what my week is like. So for me, Mondays and Tuesdays are usually actually the easiest days of the week because they don't start screening movies till about Wednesday. So mostly I see films in previews, which usually start at around Wednesday evening. The English movies, Hindi cinema, I don't know. I have begged and pleaded and groveled to have producers show us films earlier. In the West, they show critics' films at least a week in advance, even sometimes 2 weeks in advance. And there's this sort of honor code where you do not review, you don't tweet, you don't do any of this, and you review when the film comes out. But here, there's no producer who's willing to do that. So it's very rare, very rare. You have maybe 1 or 2 films. Finding Fanny, they showed us a week before. Queen, they showed us 5 days before. So I think it's just not accepted practice. And so we usually see Hindi films on Thursday evening, or sometimes Friday morning because some studios like Yash Raj do not want to show the film at all. So, that for me is not an ideal state because honestly, I'm married to a director. I know what it takes to make a movie. It is hard work and it is back-breaking hard work, and nobody makes a movie thinking it's a bad film. Everyone thinks they're making a great movie, so they put in, and even the worst movies take a hell of a lot of work. And I would like to think through what I'm saying and sleep over it and revisit my review. But sadly, I am put into a situation where Dawat-e-Ishq, they're not going to show us that film this Friday. I will watch it in the morning. I will go to a theatre at 8:39, whatever the first show is, and I will literally write that review in the car on the way to my studio. I find that disrespectful to people who have put in 2 years of their lives. But what am I going to do? The studios just won't show us anything earlier. So that's what usually the week looks like. Now the thing is that in the West, reviewers are pure reviewers. So A.O. Scott at the New York Times, or Manolo Davis, or Anthony Lane at the New Yorker, they do not also interview talent. They don't interview stars. They don't interview film directors. They are completely removed from the film industry, which I think is very valuable. Because when you're a part of the film industry, you start to like people, and you start to imagine how they're going to feel when they read what you've said, and it's very hard, the good thing is, Vinod and I are social hermits, so we have no friends, basically, so I'm not socializing with talent, because that would be even harder, but there are people I've known for 15, 20 years, and so it becomes very hard then to say what you're going to say, because I need to stop.
I think you're preempting all the questions.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
So before you respond to all this, Chetna and Anush, over to you.
Thank you for sharing those experiences with us. They were really insightful. And if you don't mind, we have a few questions for you now. So we saw a lot of your reviews and they were very interesting, and we were just wondering, when you're rating a movie, is there a criteria that you have in mind or some sort of assessment that you do?
You know, I have to say, I don't even like, I don't like the star system. I do it because honestly, I haven't figured out a better way. I haven't evolved a better solution for this, and the best critics in the world do not give out stars. It's reductive, it's simplistic, it's, again, almost disrespectful, but honestly, you know, I have to then think of what I'm doing as a consumer service, and people don't have time, and they need to look at that review and just say, is she saying it's good or is she saying it's bad? So, I'm not a big fan of the star system, but yeah, the way, my criteria really is, did you engage me? I think a filmmaker has to engage you, and by that I don't necessarily mean entertain you, and entertainment I think is defined in a very simplistic way in India. What I mean is, did you engage some part of me? Did you frighten me? Did you make me cry? Did you make me laugh? Did you know, touch some part of me? So I think if you engaged me in any way, that's a great thing. And for me, I'm not sort of a highbrow person who only likes art house cinema. I mean, I think at heart I'm completely a front bencher. I love really populist. I have very populist tastes, and I don't have like sort of my grounding is Bollywood. My love is Bollywood. So I don't go into places saying, oh, but it's not serious enough, or I don't have any such problems, you know. So my key rule is just engagement, and then if there is, so it's really storytelling. I'm not a big fan of abstract non-narrative because I haven't grown up with that, so after a while, you know, like Godard recently made a movie, 3 hours of God knows what happens, and I was like, wow.
So the ratings are just for the consumer base then?
It really is, and the tragedy is that I don't even think people read reviews anymore. I think everybody just looks at ratings, and it's just so sad because I spend so much time writing.
Right, so who do you think this audience of yours who actually watches the reviews anymore is now in India?
You know, that's a good question. It's tough, and because I've just moved to YouTube, I think I'm trying to cover all bases. So I'm on YouTube, I'm in Hindustan Times, I'm in NDTV 24/7, so I'm hoping like I'll hit someone through all that. But, it's very hard because movies are a democratic art form, which means that everyone has an opinion. I don't think all of us have an opinion on classical music. We perhaps don't all have an opinion on Bharatanatyam, but we all have an opinion on cinema. As it should be, which is a great thing. And now we all also have a platform to express that opinion. So the question people like me often ask is, what is the value of a film critic? Really, what's the point? Who's listening? I mean, for sure I know many movies, the blockbusters, nobody's listening because, people like me can keep going, nah, 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 and nobody cares, they're big hits. Anyway, my favorite story is there was a movie called Grand Masti, which released last year, okay? I used to do a Hindi show for Star Plus, and in that show we would do vox pops. So I would give my review, and then we'd go to the theatre and people would say how they felt about it. And of course I was like this old aunt sitting there, badi gandi picture hai, bilkul mat dekhna, and all this, like nagging people, don't go see it. And cut to the theatre where everyone's like, bahut maza aaya, kitni achhi picture thi. So it's such a disconnect between what I like and what people like. But so yeah, the ratings are, you wonder what it is for, and you wonder who people are listening to. I think the value of a review and perhaps the value of film critic is more with smaller independent art house cinema, maybe stuff. So I can only point people towards things that they may not notice otherwise. Maybe, otherwise I don't know, I don't know who's listening.
Does employing a particular tone or vocabulary or some accent work better for a pan Indian English-speaking audience who read your reviews or watch your reviews, like the audience that you want to?
it's not so much the audience I think about, but it's the medium. So with something like YouTube, you have to be more conversational. And something like print, and it's tough for me because I'm trained as a print journalist, so I naturally write complex sentences, there'll be 3 commas, and then it will go. And my producer's like, nobody cares, just break it up, So, I think it's more that you have to write to the medium that you're working in.
And what does the Indian audience expect from your show, and how do these expectations affect the editing choices that you make for your show differently?
Honestly, I don't know. I think they expected a certain, not gravitas, but a certain sort of, an engaging conversation, which is not necessarily about clothes or, abs. And the stuff that everybody talks about every day, the shoes that you're wearing. I mean, honestly, it's all great. I mean, I'm very interested in what shoes so-and-so is wearing, but beyond a point, like, what are you going to talk about, So I think that the expectation was like a slightly more engaging conversation on film, but it is a place to celebrate movies, so it wasn't like serious and, it's not that at all.
Okay, our next question would be, how many movies do you end up watching in a week?
In an ideal world, I would like to do a movie a day, but it doesn't happen. So about, I'd say 4 or 5.
Right, and do you review each of these eventually?
No. I would review about 3 movies a week. Like this week, there'll be at least 3. There's about 3 English releases, there's 2 Hindi releases, so I can't do all. Plus, in Hindustan Times, I recommend a movie that you can watch on DVD. So I'm always watching like one extra, which I don't review, I just talk about.
So how do you remain objective when you're reviewing these movies if they have an acquaintance of yours who's involved in the making or as an actor or...
To begin with, don't review anything that Vinod or anybody from my family is involved in because that's just an obvious conflict of interest. So I don't do that at all. Reviewing is an objective art. It is an opinion, it's subjective by design. But what it needs to be is free of agendas. It has to be, see, all reviewers have inherent likes and dislikes. I'm a sucker for Shah Rukh Khan. What are you going to do? But I can't stand to watch war on screen. Like too much blood, especially since I've become a mom, somehow it just puts me off. So those are already inbuilt biases that are there. But given all that, you have to go in without an agenda. You cannot go in thinking either with an attitude saying this is going to be rubbish, and you can't go in thinking a film will be beneath you because you're smarter than the filmmaker. You have to go in with love, and you have to go in with enthusiasm, and you have to go in with hope. No matter what you saw last week, you have to believe this week will be better.
But do you feel the need to strike a balance between being polite on camera to the movie reviews and to the directors of the movies, or and like giving your honest opinion about it?
I'm always polite. I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, yeah, it's very tricky because it's and it's just a turn of phrase that can then become just ugly and offensive. So you have to be respectfully rude, if there is such a thing. Not even rude, I suppose, but you have to, look, all you have is your honesty. That's all you have. Otherwise, why is my opinion of any value? There's a very famous film critic who said that, I never claim infallibility, I only claim honesty. So you have to be true to how you respond to a film. After that, if people get hurt, they get hurt. People don't talk to me. They don't talk to me. So, and it's very embarrassing because I'm at these school functions and there's people whose movies are just really lambasted, and I'm like trying to hide from them, and it's like, how many people are you going to hide from?
So do you prefer to not meet the actors of the movies that you're reviewing, or would that affect it?
Post-review, yes. I would prefer not to meet.
When a TV channel becomes an official partner for a movie, does that create a conflict?
You know, like I said, no one's ever asked me to alter anything. I hope that's because they know that I won't do it. And you know, there's also a lot of conversation, at least within the film industry, about reviews being bought. You know, just for the record, no one's trying to buy me. It's really sad.
How important are casting choices according to you? Like, we had this recent movie, Mary Kom. There was a big issue about how Priyanka Chopra does not look like her. So, how important do you think
Casting is, you know, half your job done. If you cast it right, that is really, you know, 50% of your task. And see, the thing about Priyanka and Mary Kom is the fundamental fact is that yes, of course there should have been a Manipuri actress who did that, but if you had a Manipuri actress, you wouldn't get the budget because you wouldn't get the market. That's the truth. Now you can't be idealistic and say let's cast a Manipuri actress, but let's make a 20 crore film. You can't do it. You know, and finally, did she take that story out to perhaps, you know, 40,000 more people? Yes, she did. So, and she did a damn good job, as I thought.
what role does cinematic techniques like cinematography, lighting, editing, and background score play in influencing your reviews?
You know, a lot, but for me, the main priority is the storytelling. Because I come from, I'm not a trained, you know, not that you can go to school and learn how to be a film critic. I've done film appreciation courses, but like for my husband, you know, we can't watch movies together because he's always looking at lighting and direction and look at that light, look at that angle. I mean, just shut up, you know, look at the story. So we just don't watch films together. So for me, if the story and the characters are compelling enough, then really the rest of it is secondary. But it's a huge component.
And what extra dimension can an actor add to a script like a bad script? According to your story, is not that great.
You know, they say that bad script nobody can really lift up. You know, a great script, even with a bad actor, can do many things. But I don't think even a great actor can really, because that's your foundation. If your foundation is feeble, then really what more can an actor do?
Right, well, the next question is more relevant to us because we'll be going to university soon. So, what you learned at university, how has it helped you in your professional career? And what did you learn that you had to unlearn in order to survive in your career?
You know, I didn't unlearn anything. I tell you, that course, it's a master's course at the Middle School of Journalism. It really gave me a foundation for life. And to date, what I am and the way I work is because of what I learned there. You know, I have on my team, and I've always had people who do fact checking. Because it's really, I think, shoddy for a piece of writing to have a name spelled wrong. I mean, there's no excuse for that. You know, you can't do that. So those are things I learned at Medill. Those were things that were taught to me. You know, this level of integrity which I try and pursue in my work. The fact that you can't let things influence you. You cannot have agendas. You cannot let advertising play any role in influencing what you're saying. You know, those were things I learned at Medill. So truly everything, and I hope you guys all go to, you know, great schools which can really mold you and shape what you do, because honestly, I don't know enough about journalism schools in India, so I don't know how they are, but for me this was the most life-altering experience.
Okay, our next set of questions are a rapid fire round. Yes. Okay, so name 3 movies that you would give a 5 on 5.
See, you know, 5 on 5 is very
You don't get to think, you just have to think.
It's not fair. This is totally not fair, but Sholay, Godfather, Citizen Kane.
And name 3 movies you would give a 0 on 5.
That's nasty. You know, I try not to ever give a 0 just because I think somebody's put it somewhere. So you can't really give a 0, but I recently gave, I think 1.5 to Creature. Two more. Hiss. Did you guys ever see that? Has anyone here seen Hiss? Oh my god, that's almost a 0. Okay, no, some films are so bad that they're good. And those I love. There was a film called Dunno Why, which is supposed to be like India's Brokeback Mountain. If you guys can find the DVD, just please, it's a classic.
Okay, well, in general, would you choose Hollywood over Bollywood or Bollywood over?
I wouldn't. I mean, you know, the beauty of cinema is you don't have to choose. I would never choose anything, but my first love is Bollywood.
Coffee with Karan or rendezvous with Sunil?
You know, I do not comment on fellow interviewers.
We'll spare you. Okay, Steven Spielberg or Woody Allen?
No, I can't do that. Yeah. It's such great.
Okay. Last question. Would you rather have a biopic made on your life or a biography?
On my life, nobody cares. Anyone cares. Anyone cares. I think Roger Ebert is the only one who deserves to have something made of his life, and there is a beautiful documentary, if you ever find the time, it's called Life Itself. Nobody cares about my life.
Okay, if someone was making a biopic or a biography on your life, what would you name it?
Define gravity.
Okay, thank you.
As a female film critic, what changes would you like to see in Bollywood's representation of women?
Oh my god, and you know, as a female film critic, the first thing is you can't go into a movie with that in mind, because otherwise you'll never like anything. But I would like to see just more nuanced and textured roles for women. I think women are just a bit too superficial. They're accessories. Though really, it's changed a lot. In the last 3 years, it's changed a lot. I am, you know, when I first started working, me, the heroine, and the hairdresser were the only 3 women on the set. You know, so it's changed a lot, and I'm happy about it.
Okay, our next task for you is sort of a challenge. Are you up for it?
Challenge?
Yeah, are you up for it?
Yes.
There's a short film that we would like to show you, and we would like for you to review it in front of us.
Like right now? smartly done because you don't expect it, and at least I didn't think that that was what was going to happen. And you put in a little comment about greed. It's funny. It's it says what it needs to say in a very short time. Nicely done. Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God,
you rated on 5?
this is what I don't like to do. Give out a rating without thinking. Like 3.5, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Actually, the questions were almost 50%. There are so many actually. So what we'll do is we'll invite Nishita, and to open the discussion, we can take a few questions from the audience. Nishita, she gets to choose. Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, when someone like Nawazuddin Siddiqui does a cake, okay, do you think this unholy mating of parallel cinema with mainstream cinema is something that Bollywood needs?
He'd be very sad to hear you call him parallel. No, I think it's exactly what Bollywood needs. Bollywood needs fine actors, and Nawaz is one of the best we have. And if you saw Cake, what he did with that role was fantastic. He was like the best thing in the movie. So I think if you have more of, and really, these notions of parallel and mainstream, I think are now very old school, they don't exist. Everybody's now doing everything. I mean, look at Deepika Padukone is in Finding Fanny. There's no more parallel.
Ma'am, what do you feel Hollywood and Bollywood are in acting and cinematography? How are they similar? In scripting and directing and...
I don't know, sometimes it feels they're so far ahead that we're not even in the same game. The thing is, I think for us the biggest soft spot is the writing. I think where we really differ, you asked what's common, but where our real problem is that we as an industry don't invest enough in writing. So I think, and they do. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they put into development and into investing in writing, and I think that's basically key. Where acting is concerned, there's all kinds of actors. I think they have far more range. So you have the big blockbusters, you have the stars, but then the same stars will also do smaller films. So I think they have far more range, and the actors are doing far more with the kind of movies they do than ours are. So you asked about similarity. Well, we're all in the movie business.
Yeah, good morning, ma'am. Actually, we saw in that video that Mr. Rohit Shetty very blatantly said that he goes for commercial films more than a creative film. So, given this attitude that the Indian audience has today, do you think it's possible for filmmakers to create a niche for art house films and for creative films instead of and enticing the audience towards these kind of films rather than commercially successful films?
There is a whole audience for more kind of niche, more parallel, more different quote-unquote cinema. But look, the beauty of it is that there is Rohit Shetty and there is Ritesh Batra who made The Lunchbox, and they're both functioning in the same film industry. When I started as a journalist, there was only one kind of Hindi cinema, and I think the beauty is that today you can go into a theatre and see anything. I mean, Ship of Theseus got a theatrical release. There's no way in hell that was going to happen 10 years ago. So it's very exciting, and I'm actually a big admirer of Rohit Shetty, not of his movies, but of him. I think he's fabulous. He knows what he's doing. He's not apologetic about what he makes. And really, there is no, like Steven Spielberg said in that clip you saw, there's nothing wrong with blockbuster. There's nothing wrong with commercial success. So in itself, we should not be dismissive of it. I'm as happy as the next person to go see a big star-driven vehicle.
Hello. Recently, there was a big rage on social media about KR Khanna's reviews. So, what do you think about KR Khanna as actor, and how do his reviews affect influence people on social media?
KRK is like one of the worst actors I've ever seen. Just no getting away from it. He cannot act. He just can't do it. There was a scene in Deshrohi or some Deshrohi, I think, where he shot and he goes, I mean, it was so bad. You know, as a reviewer, honestly, it's a great question. I don't know. In a world where KRK is a film reviewer, what am I doing? I don't know. But he's big. And it's funny, I'm on Twitter and he often tags me on Twitter and says, Anupama Ji, and I'm like, what should I respond with? Because I don't know what to say to KRK, honestly. He's his own phenomenon.
Good morning. You said that you're not supposed to judge a movie before you see this, but there's this concept for these commercial films that leave your brains at home and go watch the movie. So then how do you do it? Like, how do you judge a movie on those bases? Because from that concept, you're already saying, okay, the movie's beneath me. I'm not supposed to use my brain while watching the movie. I'm just, supposed to defy the laws of physics. Just go watch it.
Yeah, no, this leave your brains behind is just stupid. I mean, what does that even mean, But I think for me, like, you would judge a film. I look at films, did the film fulfill the intent of the filmmaker? What was the promise the filmmaker made to you? That I'm going to give you this rollicking, entertaining time, and did he or did she do that? And if they did, then that film is not a success. So I can't, there are some movies where you really can't, you look at Himmatwala and you're like, oh my God, but I can't go in there thinking that I'm too smart for this. I don't do that. I can't do that. I need to go in there saying that there will be joy and there will be exuberance, and of course there wasn't any of that. But I have to go in believing that there will be.
My question.
This will be the last question because the college is asking about.
My question doesn't relate to the films or to film critiquing. It's more about your role as a journalist in Indian journalism today. So as someone who reads the paper every day, I observe a lot of not just grammatical errors and spelling errors, but in the way headlines are put. Sometimes they're just wrong. The facts that they are stating are wrong and they're in big bold print across the front page. So why do you think that sort of culture exists when it comes to editing today in Indian newspapers?
It's just sloppy, it's lazy. It's just lazy. And I think because that's top down, and again I'm coming back to what I said before, but if you are functioning in an environment where news space can be bought, where your integrity is actually, in a sense, for sale, then editing and correct spellings are very secondary. So I think but it's awful. It's just awful because I don't think there's any culture of fact checking that exists. This is I experienced that at many institutions in the States. The New Yorker has a legendary fact checking department. There's like some 50 people who all they do is fact check, but we don't have those things, and so therefore you get, and it's about selling. It's all sensational. What is going to drive it? Sadly, that's the state of it.
Okay, the last word by a teacher, Mr. Gupta.
So we were talking, actually to your last point, I just want to point out to the students as well, Bombay Times is actually now called the advertorial, not editorial, if you look under the Bombay Times page.
It's entirely an advertorial.
Entirely an advertorial. But I had a question, as a filmmaker, and as something like you said as well, I'm a sucker for any Shah Rukh Khan film. DDLJ is one of my favorite films of all time.
Me too.
At the same time, you've got something like Schindler's List. For you as an interviewer, as a film critic, with the breadth of exposure and your relationships with, you're married to someone who is considered a cerebral filmmaker, thought-provoking films, and you also have relations with the family as classic commercial mainstream cinema. How do you follow the same benchmark across the spectrum to measure something like Schindler's List and then something like a Rohit Shetty film or Grand Masti, but at the same time maintain your integrity as a journalist?
Like I said, it's what you're asking is that what did the filmmaker intend, and did he or she meet that intention? Because you can't have different benchmarks. Because then any serious film will automatically be better than a Rohit Shetty film, and that's unfair. You have to say, what did Rohit Shetty set out to do, and did he fulfill it? And that's how I look at films.
grade 11 literature and performance and language and literature students. I would like to thank you for this really unique session, and I think that it was really an eye-opener and opened up a window of the world of film critique, and I think for all of us the skill to be unbiased, balanced but still constructive is something that's really useful for us in class. And I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say that this was really a benefit for everyone, and I'm sure that I hope that this has opened up a new type of analysis for us as well. And thank you again for your time, and I'm sure that this interaction